CCWD. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Miss Rebecca, would you call the roll, please?
Director Underhill? Here. Director Ratterman?
Here.
Director Davidson?
Here.
President Thomas?
I'm here.
And Director Cicada is absent today.
Okay, item number 2 on our agenda is public comment. And as everybody knows, this is the time when the public may address the board on any non-agendized item. Public is encouraged to work with staff to place items on the agenda for board consideration, and no action can be taken on any matters not listed on the agenda. Comments are limited to, what did we say last time, 30 minutes? Then no, 3 minutes. Okay. Good morning, or good afternoon, excuse me. Yes.
Just a brief comment. I know that you all have commented in the past how much you appreciate some of the public participation. And unfortunately, 2 of our most active representatives are facing health issues. And just wanted to make the board aware that I talked to Ralph Copeland, who I'm sure you know, and he is recovering in Modesto in the rehab center there. He's got, as he calls them, railroad tracks going from T1 to S1. So it was quite a bit of a surgery that he's gone through. And Mike Rogers couldn't join us because his mom is probably right as we speak undergoing some surgery. So would hope that you all would send them your best thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Prayers for both of them. Thank you, Francisco.
Thank you, Francisco. Okay, moving on to item number 3, the consent agenda. We have approval of the minutes of the last board meeting, January 24th and also February 7th. We have item 3B is a review of the Board of Directors monthly timesheets for February 2024. Number 3C, ratify claim summary number 624 Secretarial Fund in the amount of $4,895,544. And don't forget the 11 cents. Then we have 3D, discussion and action regarding Calaveras County Water District's letter of support for Utica Water and Power Authority, the draft application for small conduit exemptions, and surrender of the FERC license P-2019 and P-2699. And then we have finally the report on the February 2024 Operations Department.
Move for acceptance.
Second.
Okay, we have a.
You're too fast.
Yeah, too fast. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Rebecca, you want to call the roll on this item?
Director Underhill?
Yes.
Director Ratterman?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
President Thomas?
Yes. Okay, there's a couple of
Sorry, President Thomas, we normally would take public comment before the vote, but even though we've already taken the vote, you might want to ask if there's any public comment on those items.
do you have, oh, I'm sorry, that's I was told to speed up the
Moving
meeting.
fast today.
Yeah.
We were wondering why the operations report went to consent from, well, is it because of the fullness of the rest of the agenda?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. Actually, if you don't mind, I'll take that one, as I know it is a very popular item. And that's the only reason why. It was just a timing issue. And then some other things ended up getting pulled off at the last minute as well. So we may have had time for it in the end, but it's not something we're going to get away from on an ongoing basis. I know there's a lot of value in that report, so we'll make sure we prioritize that going forward. But thank you for the question.
Sure. The second question was $4.9 million is a chunk of change. And I waded through the report. I have no way of knowing whether any of that is out of norm or I don't see any summarization. It's just a big, log entry.
Mhm.
And I don't see how anybody can sit there and look at, well, how are we trending on maintenance expense? How are we trending on vehicle repairs? How are we trending on electrical supplies? Is that maintained somewhere by categorization? Is that
Yes.
what Jeffrey does? And is that something that you all don't want to look at or don't care to look at or have said, We don't want to look at it. We want to see all the detail.
We include all that in our financial statements, not in the claim summary. The claim summary is just the list of expenditures.
Those are the checks that have been paid.
Okay. Where would we get that summarization? Can we get
In
this?
the finance committee report.
Great, thank you.
Just as a point of interest there, I have been given assurances that once we get settled down in the with the new positions being filled in the accounting department, that the one thing that I've been asking for is the little snapshot of the CIP projects that we have, like a $500,000 check that was written for that particular project. I want to know how much is left in that pot of money for that account, and hopefully we'll be seeing that soon.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
Because that large amount, yes, and I looked at that because when I came on to the board, it was $1 million. And it's steadily, it's climbing up. And so I'm asking, and I had a conversation with Damon, and in this particular month, we paid a lot of money for our equipment. Yeah, you saw that. So it's not that we don't look at it. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for your comments. Now, Joel, you.
I want to thank the board and staff.
And who are you?
I'm Joel Metzger, Audited Water and Power. I just want to thank Michael for engaging with the FERC exemption comment process and for the board for providing a comment letter on it. It's the most important thing that we're working on over there, and could be a huge change for our future in a positive direction. And so we look forward to continuing to communicate with CCWD in the coming months and years. And we're really hoping for success with this effort.
Nice
you,
work
Joe.
on the application materials, for sure. And can I just note that how far we have come, that Francisco is now calling people out for not turning the microphone on. I appreciate that, Francisco.
Okay. Now, do I have permission to proceed with this agenda? We have a necessary change here today on the,
We did,
Oh, we did?
yeah.
Apologize.
okay. You're interrupting my chain of thought here, but I understand that we have a contractor that is anxious to get a contract today and has driven all the way from Oakdale. And so there's a couple of items here, the item 4D and 4E. I'm going to take the liberty of moving those up to the first items to consider under new business so that we can get these gentlemen on the way. And you're planning to mobilize and go to work this afternoon? Is that? Yeah. Okay, so I would like to start, since we can't have any contractor or any project without this mitigated negative declaration for the Jenny Lind Water System Tank AB Water Transmission Pipeline, which incidentally is CCWD CIP 11088. Kevin, you have something to tell us about the mitigated negative declaration.
Yeah, good afternoon. We're here to adopt the CEQA documents for the Jenny Lind A to B transmission pipeline. So we'll go into details about the bid on the next agenda item, but this is a mitigated negative declaration that E-Corp created for us. It's an environmental consultant that worked with our designer Coleman. So there was nothing major that we found along the right of way. There's some adjustments for some longhorn beetles and that type of work that had to be done as part of the environmental documents. So as soon as it's adopted, we'll record it with the county, and then prior to work, we'll do it 15 days prior to work. We'll do it environmental surveys of the site, make sure that there's no nesting birds and that type of thing. So I don't know if there's any questions that.
I'll move for acceptance.
Second.
Okay,
Question?
yes.
We always look for Indian artifacts. Is that part of the,
Yeah, they worked with the cultural tribes to figure out if there was any interest in it. And so we'll invite them to our pre-construction meeting and let them know the project's starting. But yeah, they've all been notified through the CEQA process.
But in your staff report, it says that all of this work is going to be taking place in the right of way that of a road that's already there. So possibility or probability of finding artifacts in that location. It doesn't say here how deep we're going to go. Is that
There's some areas where we go deeper, like we gotta go under storm drains and that type of stuff, but most of the pipeline is 3 feet deep. So it
Okay.
shouldn't be any.
all right? Well, a lot of that's probably infill anyway, huh? The way the roads are graded over there, but
Yeah,
okay.
It's pretty hard stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think they did a lot of digging in that location. enough.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, would you please poll the board?
Director Underhill,
yes.
Director Ratterman,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
President Thomas.
Yes. Okay, now moving on. I think we should take a 20-minute break here. So,
Oh, we're going too fast.
yeah. All right. This is for discussion and action regarding the contract award for Jenny Lind, AB. So Kevin, tell us about this.
Okay, so this project is 20,000 feet of new ductile iron pipe, along with new services that connect to the existing distribution main. So it's a hydraulic bottleneck in our system where we have a hard time filling tank B, and also there's big pressure fluctuations. So the new pipeline will have PRV stations that regulate the pressure. So there's 5 of those along the alignment. So that'll tie into the distribution system. So people will have better consistent pressures, and then we'll also be able to maintain the tank levels in tank B. So we got about, was it 6,500 feet of 12-inch and about 13,000, a little over 13,000 of 14-inch pipe. So all the work is mainly in the roadways along alignment. There's some other items that I want to discuss with the board. So there's a rock clause that we discussed in the engineering committee in detail, but this item reimburses the contractor for brick and rock along the alignment. So it's something different. We did this on the Tech pipeline project up in Big Trees, but we haven't done too many projects, but kind of takes some of the risk off the contractor and puts it back on the district. So in the event that they hit rock, we pay for their breaker and the guys to operate it in conjunction with their normal work activities. And then also, see, there's a additive item for the service lines. So that's replacing approximately 210 service lines along the way. So that'll give us a nice, good system where we can do an overlay on the road and we don't have to worry about digging it back up anytime soon. So we would like to award that. The engineer's estimate was $12.3 million. Came in with service lines 10.7. So this project's being funded by the bond measure that we took out in 2000, was it 2020? 22, I think it was. So that was a bond, the CIP loan that we took out. So that covered this project, covers the tank projects that we're doing in Copper Obelisk, and covers the design for the C2B transmission pipeline that we're doing in Copper also. So those are the main 3 projects and some pre-planning for some of the emergency interties and stuff like that. So of the $19 million that we had in that loan, between this project and those projects we got going in Copper, pretty much exhausted the water fund that we had for that loan.
Do you recall the interest rate of that?
I know it's a lot lower than what we're making on the
water side, I want to say it was 2.95. I think sewer was right at 3.
That was the last.
Somewhere in that ballpark.
That was the last of our
It was right
good
before.
borrowing.
And that the interest that we've been earning on that funds on deposit has been pretty impressive.
I have a question.
Yeah.
With this replacement or with this construction, are we going to be cutting down a lot on the trouble reports that we have through Jenny Lind?
Yeah, so this one is not our worst area, but it's a bad area.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
this
right.
is like yeah, we should be, it's an investment in the, it probably costs a little bit more than our guys could do it for, but doing part of the project is a big benefit to the district. Cause then we get the road overlaid. We have to overlay the road anyway, so
Oh,
if we don't overlay it and we have to go back, if we ever have to do the services, we have to do overlays with the services. So it's a benefit to do it as part of the project. And then we've been talking to the county about possibly contributing to pave the other side of the roadway as part of the project also. So that way we got the
Yeah.
whole road paved. Then I want
Because
to introduce DA Woods.
just one more comment. We always had a, and you're collaborating with the county as far as our going and, you know, repairing the road, and then they come along and dig it up for some reason. So
Yeah,
we're together, right?
yeah, we're working together. And then one other thing I didn't mention is we had 12 bidders on the project. So it was a really well bid project and really tight numbers at the top. So we think that the bid was really good for both DA Woods and for the district.
what did you say, Kevin? You had 12 what?
12 bidders on the project.
Right.
So, and then DA Woods, they wanted to come here today and kind of introduce themselves. They did some work for Snowshoe Springs up there, not just a couple years ago. And I think it's a fairly successful project. So we're excited to have them work for us.
Kevin, before you step away, when we had this discussion at the engineering committee, that you kind of went quickly over this provision for reimbursing them for extraordinary rock removal, but we didn't really talk about the fact that the first $30,000 is on them.
Yeah, there's a cubic yards quantity that's on, and then, so then after we exhaust that, then we have $50,000, I think, in the allowance item that pays for, I don't know, about 5 days of rock breaking. So if we have more than that, we'll probably have to come back to the board, depending on how much the cost is for maybe an increase. So I just wanted, that's why I brought that up, is because there's a possibility that, you know, we didn't do a lot of potholing for rock out there, so we don't really know the extent of the rock out there. So if it's what we think, it'll probably be enough. But I mean, there's a likelihood that that they can't break some of it, and it would extend past that. And then also one of the things, the geotech testing and stuff is not on is on the district on this project. So we might bring an item back to the board depending on the cost of that to hire a geotech firm to do all the testing. So.
Okay, well, the reason I brought that up is that I think that it's commendable that there is an acknowledgement that there's rock there, and they have some rock removal in their contract, and it's only under extraordinary circumstances that this added amount of money would kick in. So
Yes.
Anyway, that's good. Okay,
I have a couple comments.
Okay, yeah.
go ahead, Jeff.
No, I just want to, I mean, I don't know, we've talked about this for quite some time now. It's a very important project for the La Cantera, Rancho Calaveras area, but you know, what we're doing is we're currently, there's an existing 8-inch line that serves all those connections and fills up the B tank, which is, you know, vital for fire protection, that stays full. In the past, we have gone dangerously low, and in the past, it's actually failed. I think that was more due to a power problem, but regardless, this line, will, you know, 12 and 14-inch will be independent of those service lines. And then the 8-inch service line will be a lower pressure service line dedicated just for those. So it takes a lot of pressure off that existing sewer line, particularly when we're trying to get that B tank.
Water line. Sorry.
Pardon?
Water
What did I
line.
say?
Sewer line.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Yeah, so anyway, it takes significant pressure off that water line. So it's really an important project for our county. So anyway, I'm very thankful that we're getting it passed and look forward to seeing it under construction.
Any other questions from the board?
No, right now, no.
Okay, any gentlemen come up and introduce yourselves?
Based in Oakdale, California. Done worked from Sacramento to the foothills, beginning of the Bay Area down to Fresno. So I've been in business about, I think it's been 23 years, I think it's going on 24 real soon. And like I said, we've done Dorrington up the hill, a very successful project for us about 2 years ago. And we've done multiple bar line dams all over the valley. So kind of right up our alley. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I got a comment. Thank you. That you have to have a pretty impressive group, would be a pretty impressive company to come in number 1 on 12 with our staff. There's contractors on this list that we've had very successful projects with in the past, and so I want to congratulate you. And your expectations have risen. I think with you taking on this project, but look forward to working with you. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
And I used to be up in Dorrington, and I have heard you have very good reputation because they were completely satisfied with your reworking of their water system. And so you come very highly recommended.
We tried it.
Uh-huh.
I do appreciate that.
Could you shed some light on this, the availability of this ductile iron? It was explained to us that there's some questionable timeline that they don't keep it on the shelf anymore. Why is that?
Well, now like a 12-inch pipe is generally you can get it fairly quick. 14 is an oddball size, so they don't necessarily stock it locally and they have to manufacture it. It's also zinc coated, which adds another level of difficulty for the manufacturers. And from what was spec'd, there's only 3 ductile manufacturers in the United States. So they generally are sitting right now at, this will come through US pipe. Right now they're sitting right around 10 to 12 weeks for the pipe. The fittings are sitting 14 to 18, depending on what fitting it is. The only thing that has a really long lead time is the surface brass for the laterals, and that's sitting about 6 months right now. And that's been a problem for us, for the whole industry, for about 1.5 years. Surface brass is just really backlogged right now. But that's something we'd probably do at the end of the job anyway, so it shouldn't hurt the overall construction schedule.
Okay, so your start time isn't going to be significantly delayed. You'd start when you anticipated starting anyway?
Not really. I've already talked with the guys here and told them I'm gonna submit some submittals here fairly shortly. We'll have them within a couple days. And then once I get those approved, I can get the pipe ordered, and that will be critical to get the job started. We're looking to start this fairly quickly. So ourselves.
Okay, any other questions? Any questions from the public?
Well, before we do that, I'd like to make a motion for acceptance of this project.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Now, anybody want to talk? Nope. All right, we have a motion and a second. Rebecca, would you please pull the board on this item?
Director Underhill,
Yes.
Director Riderman,
Yes.
Director Davidson.
Yes.
President Thomas.
Yes. But you can't go anywhere until I sign the resolution. All right. Thank you for
Could I just
both of you for
go
being.
in, Director Davidson, real quick, and it feels like a momentous, I'm sure Joel remembers talking about this project, when you first started at CCWD. It's been on the books for a long time. It feels like a big deal, even just awarding the contract. So really looking forward to getting this project going and getting it in the ground. Thank you for your support.
Just one last comment. I think it's important to recognize too, that one of the reasons that this project has been delayed is because we were so successful getting grant money and we had to do all that work up in Evans Pass. I mean, it's may be funny, but it's true. I mean, we had to shift the priorities because we did have some grant money and, the district can only do so
Because
much.
winter was coming and
Well, it
we
wasn't
had-
just winter. It was just a matter of the opportunity for the grant.
And as far as bandwidth goes, the project in West Point as well.
Yeah, so I mean, those were important projects, but the cost of this project has escalated because of that. But it's just the nature of how things work here. there's more work than to be done than, we have the money for. And when we have the opportunity to get grants, sometimes we have to shuffle the projects with the priorities because of that. I just think it's important for people to understand that.
Well, I'm so, we are pleased that, we were able to complete all those other projects and now we can go forth, and that's great.
Okay, let's direct our attention back to the regular succession on new business. Going back to item 4A, we have discussion and action regarding the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. Michael, you are taking this on?
Yeah, so we discussed this at the finance committee meeting. Was that just last week? 2 weeks ago. As well, we've made a few changes just in response to some of the comments we had, not to the audit itself. And Brian Nash is on the call to kind of walk through the overview of that real quick. But we did add the request of the finance committee, which I think was a good request. We added some additional detail to the responses in the management letter. And so look forward to talking through that as well. But for the most part, I'm going to turn it over to Brian. Are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. The auditor that completed the report.
Are you going to upgrade me to be able to turn on my camera and allow me to share my screen so I could walk through the financials?
I think we can trust Brian.
We can trust him.
So good afternoon. You should see 3 items from us. I'm still waiting for to be able to share, but there's audited financial statements. Okay, there's the camera. There's audited financial statements and 2 letters. One letter says governance letter just below our opinion, and the other just below our letterhead, required communications letter, I'm sorry. And then the other one says management letter. So I'll be covering those briefly. It sounds like you have a full schedule. I'll go cover them briefly. I went through them in a lot of detail at the finance committee level. I still don't see the ability to share my screen. It's grayed out. But one thing to keep in mind is the management is responsible for the financial statements. We help prepare the financial statements, but it's their management's responsible for them, and our responsibility is to provide our opinion based on our audit. We have on the page 1 of the financials, we have our opinion. Our opinion applies separately to each fund, each enterprise fund, the water fund, and the sewer fund. And it also applies to the custodial funds. The custodial funds are the funds used to account for some special assessment districts that the district accounts for. So there is a 3rd fund in the financial statements. We do have clean opinions, what's called a clean opinion or unmodified opinion on the financial statements. So that's good. We had to implement a couple of auditing standards. One of them is Governmental Accounting Standards Board Statement number 96, which is they keep making things more complicated, but we had to look at your software. They call it subscription-based information technology arrangement. So basically your software, to determine if you had long-term software where we had to record a liability. We determined that there's none of them that were long-term, so we didn't have to record a liability, but that was something that we had to implement during the year. There's going to be a compliance report issued by March 31st. We have what's called a single audit that's required this year. A single audit is a compliance audit of federal grants. And so that's in progress right now. My manager's almost done with it, and I'll be looking at it very shortly. It has to be issued by March 31st. In that single audit report, there's a compliance report, and we are going to report a deficiency for the number of audit adjustments we found during the audit. We had over 20 adjustments. It was kind of a difficult audit with Jeff in and out and Catherine resigning at the end of the audit. So it did hold us up a little bit, but I think some of the adjustments there were some adjustments related to the leases that were recorded last year, and some things that just weren't quite ready when we started the audit. Some changes that had to be made throughout the audit on a whole bunch of different account balances. So that did slow us up just a little bit. Otherwise, there were no unusual items during the audit. No disagreements with management or anything unusual like that. So I still don't see the ability to share my screen. I was going to pull up the financial statements and show you a couple of the high points. There we go. So can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the audited financial statements.
Yes.
One of the things we always look at is how the sewer fund was doing. When we first became your auditors, the sewer fund had a negative cash balance. You can see it's positive, but there is a interfund loan that was made of $645,000 that you could see here from the water fund. So the sewer fund is still paying back the water fund for that deficit that existed, that cash deficit that existed in the past. It was turned from a negative cash into a long-term liability. So that fund is a little bit tighter on the cash flows than the water fund. You can see here the sewer fund only had about $1.2 million of cash that's unrestricted, and the water fund had about 11 million. There's lots of restricted cash. So under non-current assets, the restricted cash are all of is the cash from the R&R fees, the expansion fees, and unspent debt proceeds. So these are all restricted to capital projects. So the financial statements do show that you have a lot of cash, but the great majority of it is restricted for only capital projects. So just when you're looking at the financial statements, that's something to keep in mind.
Excuse me, Brian, could I have a
Sure.
page number?
So this is page 14 of the financial statements, and I'm not sure what page it is of your packet. Well, maybe Michael can direct it to that page. So then on the liability side of the financial statements, you'll see there's some long-term liabilities, and the pension and post-retirement healthcare benefit liabilities called OPEB. That's the acronym that the accounting industry uses. Those went up quite a bit this year. There was a 6% investment loss at the CalPERS level during the measurement period used to compute these liabilities. These liabilities were computed from numbers in 2022. There was a 6% investment loss. And so the pension liability increased 8.1 million, and the post-retirement healthcare benefits liability increased 6.1 million. So quite big increases for that due to that investment loss. In the back of the financial statements, there's some reports that show the funded percentage, and I'll briefly touch on that in just a moment. Here at the bottom of the financial statements is the unrestricted net position. You'll see that the sewer fund is negative, the water fund is positive. There are these long-term liabilities that are creating that negative. So these are not payable in the near term, but it is causing the net position to be negative. If you kind of look at it from what's long-term versus what's short-term, and then what's restricted and versus what's not restricted, if you took the 2 million and backed out the 17 million of long-term liabilities, it does go positive, quite a large amount positive. So it looks a little better when you think of it that way. On the income statement side, the operating income increased about 1%. Expenses increased quite a bit, but that includes that change in the pension and retiree healthcare benefits liability. So that added about $10 million of expenses due to the changes in those liabilities. Not only did they lose money, 6% investment loss, but they also decreased the discount rate that they use to compute the liability And when you decrease a discount rate, it makes the liability go up. And just from a present value accounting standpoint. So that's a large part of that increase in the expenses. But expenses, if you took those two numbers out, the pension and the post-retirement healthcare benefit expense, it went up about 14.7% from 16.7 million to 18.4 million. And a large part of the increase was utility costs and professional services. Those are the two main changes in the expenses, other than the pension and the OPEB expense. On the positive side, investment income increased quite a bit. There was a large unrealized loss on investments in 2022 that lessened in 23, and plus with the interest rates going up, the investments return was a lot higher. So that's the positive side, $3 million increase in investment income. Here you can see the capital contribution revenue is where the expansion fees and the R&R fees are located. There was a loss before those capital, those restricted fees restricted for capital purposes. This $1.8 million other capital contribution, that's donated infrastructure. So that's not a cash revenue, but it's required to be recorded as revenue in the financial statements. But you'll see here before that, there was a loss. And, once again, pension and OPEB are non-cash expenses that are part of those. 8.8 million on the water fund side, and it's 1.7 on the sewer fund side. So without those non-cash expenses, it would have been positive. So overall, there was a $2.8 million loss. Change in net position is a loss for the water fund, and it was positive for the sewer fund. Okay, going to just show you, so here's the custodial funds. Those are the assessment districts that the district accounts for. We're required to report those in the financial statements. I'm going to, so the footnotes disclose accounting policies. I'll show you just a couple of highlights. Page 26 of the financial statement shows all your investments. And so you used to just be in the lay for the county pool, but now there's separate investments. There's a schedule here that shows the ratings of investments. And so all the investments are very highly rated at the end of the year. There's on page 31, this is where there's a capital asset roll forward, and you can see there's lots of construction projects in process. There's $12.8 million of capital asset projects in process. And there's a management's discussion and analysis just before the opinion of the financial statements where Jeff listed out all the projects in process if you're curious. The bottom part of this page shows the long-term liabilities. Long-term liabilities decreased overall, other than the pension and the OPEB. There weren't any significant new additions, but there were pay downs of over $2 million. And you're talking about the water revenue bonds, 2.94% is the interest rate. So that was a very good memory.
Wow. I was way off. Me.
Okay, page 36. And there's, future payment schedules on the debt is listed in the financial statements. There's a footnote here that talks about the net position reserves. So here's the approved reserves. And over here is the amount that could be funded with the amount of net position that existed there at the end of the year. There's an unrestricted or a negative sewer fund, and the water fund could fund the first couple, part of the first one and part of the second one, but that was all that existed there at the end of the year. So there's lots of information about the pension plan, and all the methods and assumptions that are used, and the post-retirement healthcare benefit plans. I'm not going to go over that in any detail. I wanted to show you, there's some supplementary information. This is page 47 of the financial statements, and there's a row here that shows the funded percentage of the pension plan. It was 99% funded due to the strong investment income in 22. And then it declined to 83, just under 84%. That's still pretty high. I know CalPERS has said they're not worried about it if it's over 75%. So 84% at the end of 23. And the post-retirement healthcare benefits, it was 86% funded at the end of the previous year, and it was down to just under 57%. But still, that's not too bad. You funded quite a bit over the years since we've been your auditor. And investment income and losses kind of affects the amount that's there at the end of each year, but the funding has been there. It's been funded kind of strongly over the past several years. The schedule here shows the amount that you've contributed in excess of the requirement over the years. So you've done a good job on reducing that unfunded amount. And I know with the new plan that exists for retiree health, that's a defined contribution plan instead of a benefit plan. This liability should start decreasing over time. I wanted to mention that there is a footnote that I skipped that I wanted to show you. So there's a footnote here that shows commitments, contract commitments. So at the end of the year, there was about 15 million of contract commitments. You can see the biggest ones were the West Point, Wilseyville, and Copper Cove Force Main. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is the debt service ratios. There's a schedule on the back of the financial statement. This is page 54 of the financial statements. So you can see this is the water fund page. With all of the debt included at the bottom here, the requirement's 1.25 and it's 1.58 at the end of the year. That's quite a bit less than I've seen in the past, but once again, the non-cash loss for post-retirement healthcare benefits and pension has really affected the income and the expenses in this year. On the sewer fund side, it's a lot better. This is page 55. The sewer fund side, 13%, or 13 times greater than the requirement. So that's all I had on the financial statements. If anybody wants me to go into anything in more detail, I'd be happy to do that now before I go over the management letter.
Go ahead.
Well, Brian, good to see you back.
Thank
Your
you.
face doing this with our district. I'm sure from year to year that helps with and sorry you're not working with the same group that keeps retiring and becoming ill. It seems like, but good to see you're the constant with at least the last few years. I just wanted to say something. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say I was pleased to see you do have 2 accountants now. I think it was kind of a lot of work for one person to handle. So I know Patty in the past and then Catherine were trying to do it by themselves. It was quite a bit of extra work. An audit's like a second job, and it was kind of difficult for one person to handle it. So to see the fact that you have 2 funded accountant jobs, that's I think I was pleased to see that. So even though there's a little turnover, that's the nice thing that I saw this year was the extra position that you funded.
Okay, no,
I'm
thanks.
sorry I interrupted you.
No, and the one thing I wanted to talk about, I hear about all the time out in the in the field and talking to other districts, is about the unfunded OPEB related to the net OPEB liability. And it's so good to hear, and I think that was under Jeff's recommendation that we overfund that or aggressively fund it. And good to hear you've talked about it every year, and I think we're in a way different position than a lot of our a lot of other water districts in California. And can you comment on that briefly and what you see out there?
Yeah, there's still some that don't fund their post-retirement healthcare benefits liability. So that, and it's just a promise, not a funded benefit. So the district has come a long way in providing a funded benefit, and that, like I said, that post-retirement healthcare benefit liability, that's a defined benefit plan. So the benefit's been provided, and it's subject to the number of employees that are going to get it, the healthcare costs that increase, and what happens in the investment world. So you really don't have a whole lot of control over a defined benefit plan, but you've changed to a defined contribution plan a couple years ago, and that is a really big step that will put you in a good position with the OPEB. So even though it shows that it's only a little under 60% funded, the liability will decline over time because there's no new additions to that plan. So all the additions are now a defined contribution plan. So you take care of the responsibility to your employees each year. You contribute to that plan, and then you've satisfied the responsibility under that plan. So that's definitely a big step forward. Not many districts have gone to that that kind of a plan, and I think that's really a positive. As from a financial standpoint, that's a positive step.
Awesome. In the management letter, I really appreciate that. I think that's one of the largest takeaways. I know we're going to be discussing it in a minute here, but every time we have an audit, that is to me one of the most important things that comes out of that audit. And I know in last year in the finance committee, we followed it along. It was on our agenda every single meeting on complying or not, a reason why we're not complying with those recommendations. So that's greatly appreciated. And when you do finally say what our I think we're the net, I mean, what the words describe our stamp of approval, if you would also indicate what that means. It's such an unimpressive term when related to the audit. But what
so you have
go ahead.
Unmodified audit opinion, meaning we don't have any modifications to our opinion saying that there's issues that are not in accordance with accounting standards. So that means that everything is in accordance with accounting standards in our opinion. So that's important to have. That means that you're following all the requirements that you should be.
Thank you.
It's
Any
not
other
a
questions?
satisfactory term, I agree. We deserve a better pat on the back.
It's not not very flowery.
Right.
That's all I got.
Any other questions? I just have one. You talked with a lot of weight given to it about how the funds were negatively impacted by a loss of asset value of the retirement fund in general. But I mean, this I'm sure is assets of investment assets of our the retirement plan. So if they get lucky and their assets go back up in value, then I would think that there would be a corresponding increase in our cash position or less negative impact. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, that's correct. And I showed you that page in the supplementary information that shows the funded percentage of the plan. Your plan is funded at a higher percentage than many of our other clients that are participants in CalPERS. So I've kind of lost track of whether you must have put an extra contribution into CalPERS at one point. So 85% funded, that's still fairly high. But you did see, and I can pull up the financial statements again to go back to that page.
We did, Brian, we financed the contribution.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. There was the debt that was issued and put into the plan. But it was almost fully funded in 22, and just due to that negative investment earnings at CalPERS during the measurement period, it did decline, but 84%, it's higher funded than most other agencies. So you're in very good shape as far as the pension plan goes. And I know, like I said, CalPERS thinks if it's 75% funded, they're not worried about it. I think is kind of how they said. So you're in a good position where with that liability as well.
Okay,
Anything else you'd like me to cover on the financials? Now that you have a response to the management letter, maybe I don't need to go into the detail on that. There were a few, I consider the management letter recommendations. I did mention the 21 closing entries. You've already addressed that by, you now have 2 accountants in the accounting department. I think that will be a big help. I think it's a lot of work for one person to be able to prepare for the audit. And then some of the other comments I consider those to be kind of, lower level comments. It's important to have preventive controls, and some of these recommendations that we have are to have preventive controls. There's very good detective controls at the district. So the preventive control will help possibly prevent something inappropriate from happening, and a detective control will find it after the fact. I think you have very good review procedures that would find any issue. Just some of the recommendations that we have in the letter are more of let's prevent it in the first place. Change who inputs new employees into the payroll system. That's a preventive control. Usually, as I said in the finance committee, what we normally see is somebody on the billing side would input employees, and then somebody on the payroll side would input new customers. So you're switching who does that. That's a preventive control. Some of the other ones are there's a policy recommendation for capital assets. There's a review that we recommended over the customers that go into the billing system versus what's billed. The one about documenting payables, I was hoping to get that done when Patty was here, because she's the one who really knew how to do everything. It's a little bit too late for that one, but I think she did document many of the things that she did, and I think it was a big help to Catherine when she took over in the accounting department. There's a whistleblower recommendation to have a whistleblower policy, and one about actually splitting Fund 104 and 108. And this is something that Jeff, I think, said he was planning on doing, and putting the part that's related to the water fund in the water fund, and the part related to the sewer fund in the sewer fund. We've been splitting that during the audit, and that's a little bit difficult because any adjustment, we end up having to split adjustments too. So if it's split by staff, that would be a big help. So those are our management letter comments. Those items have been there for a while now. But it's good to hear that there's been a response to that. So, that's a good positive development. So hopefully that means there's now a plan to address those.
Sure, go ahead,
We're
Jeff.
supposed to make a motion to receive and accept the audit. Have we switched already?
Switch one.
We are talking about Force B now.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the management letter.
Yeah,
Right.
the management letter is for B.
Did we accept the audit report? Okay, I'll make a motion that we receive and file the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ending June 20th, 2023.
Second,
okay, we have a motion and a second. Would you like to make a comment?
So I don't know about you, but trying to read all of that and make sense out of it first time in was a challenge that I did not meet. So I want to understand what the gentleman just said. We improved our pension position by borrowing. Is that true? Is that what I understood? We borrowed to pay into the pension, and
Wow.
yeah,
Reduced our liability.
We paid
unfunded
down the liability in part with a loan that I believe is now paid off. Kelly, do you know?
and
I think it is now already resolved.
and
But it was a good, I think it was because we got a good it was a good investment.
And CalPERS funding is, in his opinion, a little higher than what he experiences. CalPERS looking at 75 being acceptable, and we're 85% funded. That money comes out of ratepayers, right?
It was an unfunded liability and now it is not.
But I mean,
Sure.
that's the only place it can come from, right? It's the rates.
Almost everything comes out.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so the other thing I noticed is the debt ratio was significantly higher than the 1.25. And one of the very convincing arguments made in the Prop 218 meetings was, hey, our debt ratio is the pits. We need to get reserves up. We need to do this and we need to do that, because otherwise we can't get loans, our credit goes down, et cetera. And here we are sitting on fat debt ratio.
Hold on, we're conflating two completely.
That's why I
different
want
things.
clarity.
Yes,
Yeah.
no. You're talking about the debt ratio based on investment, the 5-year financial plan and where that debt ratio was going to go if we didn't raise rates. This is debt ratio as a snapshot in time in, July of 2023.
Last year.
Those are they're two very different things.
I understand they're two very different things, but the story I went away with in going through the Prop 218 meetings is that we're in trouble with the debt ratio and we need to increase rates significantly.
Right.
But at the same time, we've been running a fairly healthy debt ratio, getting up to the 218,
Which
the
is what we-
218 started, right?
Which is it's very important that we continue to do that.
Well, I'm going to suggest that you revisit that, because it seems like, based on what I'm hearing on this, things are a little bit tilted towards making sure that employees are taken care of. Good healthcare, good post-retirement, good funded pension plans, et cetera. And the ratepayers are going to be paying for that for the next 5, 10, 15 years at some accelerated rate to keep that process stable. Is that a misinterpretation?
Only if it's financially beneficial for the district would we pay down in advance. We're only doing that if it's a smart financial move for the district. We're not going to make those expenditures. This is why we stopped doing it on the OPEB side. We talked about how I think it was very financially responsible for the district to make larger than the mandatory contributions to pay down our unfunded OPEB liability for a long period of time. But once we reached a certain point, we reevaluated that, especially when we changed the OPEB benefit that we offer, and we no longer make the same contribution that we used to make because we don't need to. So we're saving on an annual basis already before we even see the benefit in the long-term unfunded liability. We're saving in the operating budget now because we no longer have to make those contributions that we used to have to make.
So you can begin to see how difficult it is from the outside to see what's going on.
It's very
And so
complex.
it's very complex. And what I'm trying to propose is some way to reduce the complexity, to make it understandable it's, I don't know that it's that big of a thing to do graphically. I mean, you've got a talented individual in Kelly, and he's done a great job on getting other messages out. For example, if you started with a big tank of water, saying this is all of our monies we get from all of the different sources, break that tank up into layers, saying this is the revenue we got from rates, this is this kind of revenue, et cetera. And then you start divvying it up into different expenses. You can see where it goes up. Well, look, here's what went into reserves, and here's what went into paying these, here's what went into operations. So you can follow the money. And right now, with nothing but numbers and spreadsheets and all of that, it becomes extremely difficult for even a person that I think is okay in terms of education to figure out what the heck is going on. It's very difficult. And if you guys have mastered it, kudos. But I find it extremely difficult to figure out how all of this stuff flows, because you got accounts, you've got organizations, and you've got monies flowing here and monies flowing there, but nothing is summarized or trended or shown how it moves. It's just snapshot, 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 snapshot. And you all can put the dots together, but we as ratepayers are going, what the heck is going on?
Well, that's why we're required to do this audit.
Well, the audit,
The audit is,
trust me,
the audit is,
the audit basically says you guys follow the rules. That's it. Okay. That's what he basically said. You guys follow the rules, general accepted county standards. Should you manage the direction of monies differently? Should you invest in these projects or those projects or this? That's none of their business. It's how do you account for the monies that you spent? Did you follow the rules? That's all the audit does. It doesn't do anything about, did you make the right investments? I mean, they're highly rated, but you know, did you make the right project choices, et cetera, et cetera? So the
That's
audit
right. So
just
we-
basically
I'll
says,
just tell you, Francisco, it is a full-time job.
I
To try to
understand.
understand this, and you're not gonna accomplish it in a year. As hard as you've been working on it, I can still tell, and believe me, I mean, this is stuff that I understand pretty well, but I don't understand the whole thing. I mean, but I have to rely on our staff and our auditors, to explain this stuff to me, but I mean, when we start talking about restricted funds and things like that, it's very, very complicated. It's, people see that there's a big pile of cash, but they don't understand that it's restricted to capital projects. For instance, La Cantera sewer assessments. Anytime somebody pays in a capacity fee, that money goes in the pot. We don't have, that's not ratepayer money. That's not to be used for retirement. That's not to be used for anything. It's very complex. You're right. And I don't know that it's possible to get to a layman's description of how complex the state laws are that we have to comply with.
Oh, trust me, I understand it. I mean, I've got other comments on the state laws coming down the pipe, but that you all are gonna wrestle with losses and conservation edicts and all this and all that, but that's another agenda item. I'm just trying to get some sense of how do we get our hands around it? Because as far as I can tell, for the next 10, 15 years, there's nothing but rate increases. Okay, because those project lists are not being reduced. I mean, you took off $200 million bite and reduced it to an $85 million bite, but that 115, the 100, it's still out there. Those things are
It's
still
no
in the
longer
ground.
115, it's probably 150 by now, and the list has grown in projects.
I
So no,
understand.
you're absolutely right. No, it doesn't end. But keeping the doors open and the water flowing, it's absolutely important to do exactly that. And I don't think you're going to come into a district and be here for less than 1 year. I've been here since 2011. This is still very, very complicated. Brian is who I rely on to give us these numbers. And if you've taken some finance classes and comparing one number to the other, you can compare that with other districts and other entities. If you got, you know, that limited knowledge of which ratios you're looking at in all that documentation, but you seem frustrated and you're not grasping it all. I get that, and you should be frustrated, and you shouldn't have grasped it all in a short period of time you've been studying this. But I guarantee you,
If we
you'll.
did, we've got positions, available.
Let's go.
And I would add though, too, you're right, that the audit doesn't address a lot of what you're talking about right now. That's not covered in the audit. That is, though, we talk a lot about that in finance committee and engineering committee in particular. You know, we do address the investments that we make, the way that we spend money, and
I'm aware of
whether that's
I'm
working or
aware of
not.
that, Mike. I'm just saying that it's not as transparent as you all would like to believe you are being with the public. That's why you got.
Well,
the
wait, I
response
disagree
you
with
got.
that. It is very, very transparent. It's difficult to understand. And to put it into cartoon caricatures so that other people can understand it is going a little bit above and beyond. I think what our job is here.
And we
It's
run the risk
difficult
of
to understand.
oversimplifying and misinterpretation sometimes by doing that. So we try to be, we try to present it in different ways to be as transparent as possible, but we also have to be cautious about how we do that.
Well, I find that the water industry is very insular. Okay, it's not a consumer driven, demand driven kind of a thing. It's a very much you know, you're the only game in town. So you have the culture that develops of, well, you know, we know best, or we don't get enough input from our clients, so whatever we do is fine. I'm trying to find a way to improve what goes on between the provider of an essential service and the decision makers that make the decisions that affect people's lives daily. Okay, I mean, we're waiting for the final regulations on how much water we can use, because those things are coming down, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they'll change.
I don't think that's a fair characterization of the culture here, and you know, we can agree to disagree about that.
We can agree to disagree. Thank you.
Before you step away, I want to weigh in on this a little bit. Did you hear the auditor's comments about the change that occurred when we we modified the new hires and
From
made,
defined to contribution?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Remember, I'm a retired HR guy.
okay, all right.
So I
But-
followed that.
But that, when I first got on the board, it was alarming to me to read on the financial statements that we were making a significant contribution to current retirees, retirement or current employees' retirement benefit. And then there was another line item that seemed to be growing disproportionately fast about the contribution for retired people's retirement. And many of us were concerned about the same thing, and we made that a big change. And you heard him say that we're kind of in a leadership position in the state to wrestle with that and try to implement that change. So, I mean, it's not like we're oblivious to opportunities that we have to take to make sure that if rates increase, that they don't increase more than they should or more than is warranted by the board or a rudimentary analysis. I'd be the first to admit that these, gosh, I should have paid more attention in my managerial accounting classes in college. Maybe it would have been more clear, but this is, my eyes glaze over, but I have to depend on these hired accountants that come in and do the audit, and to the members of the board here that are senior to my participation, that, okay, it really upset me that even though we had made those changes in the retirement because of CalPERS, they didn't make the right investments, that the value of those assets went down, and therefore we got this big negative number. But apparently it's not as bad as I thought. It's
When I first,
turned around.
we were paying the entire portion when I first took office.
Mhm.
Throughout contract negotiations, that has declined.
Yeah.
Well, that's industry wide. Corporations started doing that in the late 90s.
Well, okay.
So
It's music to my ears to hear you say, yeah, you know what's going on there, and we're doing the right thing. Wow, that's we made a good decision. So anyway,
I have more comments on it. Thank you.
okay.
May I offer one suggestion for understanding your numbers?
Sure.
I find the rate study usually has some schedules in it that schedule out your future expenses for both operating and capital. So our financial statements, they look at the past. It's a snapshot of the last 2 years in the past. The rate study schedules out future expenses as they're projected. I think that's really important to look at to help understand where the rates come from. So that's something that I always find is useful when I'm trying to understand what's happening. I look at the rate study, so and the budget also.
Right. So, I mean, these are snapshots. It doesn't really tell the whole picture. It's a snapshot.
Did you have a rebuttal to that or some comment?
We've been drowning ourselves in the 5-year rate plan, and we've asked for the spreadsheets that established it so that we can understand it better, and then we can do our own analysis as we have been trained to do. We don't have that capability yet, and we're awaiting a response so that we can move forward on that aspect of the forward-looking analysis as opposed to the backward-looking analysis that an audit uses.
Good afternoon, Al.
Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. I agree with the previous speaker, except more so. It might be possible to make things simpler by the use of charts. You can have a chart, maybe over 5 years, that identifies the trends that are taking place in the different categories. This would be a management tool, and also would be very sunshine for the ratepayers and the taxpayers. Not doing that, you have a list of expenses with no trend factors. You don't know what's happening with that versus the year before, the year before, the year before. You don't, you're just blind. You just have figures you're working with. You can, I agree that it should be, the specified, contributions, rather than, the other way, which would take off, it would not have any restrictions on it. So if we could possibly put this into graphic form with a consultant, if they're able to do so, this would be a management tool. It'd be understood by the public and allow your job to be a lot better because you could see what areas could be a problem. You know that when you have increased customers or users, it'll show in the graph. You'll have corresponding increases in the various expenses that'll be shown on the graph. But when the graph doesn't come out that way, it's an indication that there's something that needs attention. One of the things that I discovered in going to the tour of the facility was that there's a lot of expenses that you have that are not your own fault. It has to do with government regulation. There's 3 types of government regulation. You got local, you got state, and you got federal. Well, if you could possibly identify which areas need attention, like the CARB regulations, or forcing the district to go to electric vehicles. There's so many things that are tremendous expenses that are kind of like ignored because you didn't do it. It's not your fault. Well, if you can identify what these unreasonable regulations are, and I think you know what they are, you can then work with the National Association of Water Districts and to provide information to our representatives, not just the Board of Supervisors, but also our state representatives and our federal representatives to try a long-term program of correcting these things. So you no longer have this burden. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And we're actually doing it and do it every single year when we go to conference. It's exactly what we're doing.
More
We
more
have
than that,
advocacy.
Director of Operations is on the Implementation Advisory Committee for the
Right.
California Air Resources Board. We're very involved in those processes. And then also to your first point, I think that's also something that we do. This is not the tool that we use to do that.
Right.
As we go through budget development, you'll see we do look at recent historical trends and we show that in those documents and when we compare it to the proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year. So we do that. The audit is not where we do that. This is just the snapshot in time of the last fiscal year.
Who would do the graphs? Who would put together the graphs if not this consultant?
Well, the auditor does not develop the budget.
Okay,
Right. So
So-
we typically have done that in-house in the past. We have an agenda item later today where that's going to change this year, but for the most part, we have done that in-house.
okay. So you could do it if you had the personnel.
No, we do it. We do it every year. It's just not
You
in
really
this
have to
document.
show up to the finance committee meetings. You're not gonna open a webpage and learn everything that you need to learn if you really wanna understand all this stuff. I mean, it can be helpful, but you really need to show up. That's what
budget-
has to happen. You
the
gotta
budget-
show up to the finance committee meeting. You gotta show up to our budget. You know, when we adopted $25 million budget, whatever we adopted this last year, I think we might have had 4 people show up for that meeting. 4 people, maybe a couple online. But, you know, that's, and so, you know, don't put it on us that people don't understand what we're doing. You really have to be there, you have to show up, and you have to have some understanding to begin with.
But we
No.
do those historical comparisons. When we develop the budget every year, we are usually looking back 3 years to show so that when we're presenting the proposed budget, we have previous year expenditures for each of those line items in the discussion that we have at Finance Committee, usually multiple times, as well as with the full board. So
We have a budget review process. We do
that
that.
all happens. It's just not in the audit itself. That's not
Right,
where
and
that.
In addition to that, Al, as far as regulations go at the local, state and federal level, we are working with local groups with advocacy and we actually have lobbyists at the state level and the federal level. They're also working on that. And not only that, to creating legislation to assist us in those programs. That's all going on right now and has been going on almost since I've been here at the.
Yeah, we're very active in that area, but I think you have a very good suggestion, and Director Davidson has also asked us for this, to do a better job of tracking and reporting out on what the additional costs are just for regulatory compliance. And that is something that we do need to improve on. It's difficult to parse out because almost everything we do is mandated by, or overseen by one of our many masters. So it's difficult to kind of parse it out, but when we have something new, like electric vehicles, water use efficiency is another one. Those are things that we're already expending resources on just for regulatory compliance without even making any physical changes yet. That's an opportunity for us to, flag those things from the outset and track those additional expenditures that are tied to regulatory burdens. But it'll take us some time to really parse out, all of looking at our whole budget, how much of it is tied to just regulatory compliance versus actual, boots on the ground, get the work done that we need to do. It's something we need to improve on.
So you've identified unreasonable regulations. I'm here kind of hearing that. And so if those were corrected, how much money would you save? Hands.
Correcting them is not easy, but yes, it would be a lot of money.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to add one thing too. Another thing that I've been asking for, and it's not related to the audit, but is the percentage of infrastructure versus budget. The percentage of our budget that we're putting towards infrastructure in comparison to
Operating budget?
Yes, other agencies. I still want to get
compared
that.
to other agencies?
Yeah,
Sure.
I want to know how we stack up against other agencies in the area as far as putting money into infrastructure as a percentage of our total budget.
We can get that for you, absolutely.
One more comment?
What Director Davidson just requested is one of the industry standard metrics that we propose be part of your report card. Your per capita investment on CIP, as well as your percentage contribution as it relates to total budget. Again, moving in the right direction. We would support that.
Okay, I think that I recall we have a motion and a second and a lot of discussion on this item. This is for approval of the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. Could you poll the board on this?
Director Underhill,
Yes.
Director Ratterman,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
President Thomas.
Yes. Okay, now I think that next item for consideration is the audited financial statement and management letter for the fiscal year ending June 30th,
I think
2020.
Brian talked through it mostly already. I would just ask the board at this point if there's any questions. Like I said, we did have a good discussion at this during the Finance Committee, and then there were some responses, the corrective action responses that were, I think the committee asked for us to bolster those responses, and we've done that for the most part. There's probably a few more that we could get into even more detail, but we tried to add some timelines as well, and some of the action items. we'll continue as Director Ratterman noted, we'll report back to the Finance Committee on a regular basis on those items and try to get some of them cleared up by the end of this fiscal year so they don't show up again next year. But here we are in March already. So, but I think there are some items that we can address between now and then and see if we can get those off the list for next year.
Yeah, because if you go through the management letter, you see a repeat of,
Certain items.
different items
Yeah.
year after year after
Yeah.
year.
And some of that is, is that, like I says, there's some things we've identified where, yeah, we need to take action and get it cleaned up. There's others that are going to take time and they will be there, next year as well, but we'll continue to try to work to eliminate those.
Okay, am I to understand that it is your suggestion that we hit by virtue of the item that we just approved, we have also approved 4B?
There's no action.
No action on 4B.
No.
He had already talked.
We
Okay,
discussed it.
all right.
You're on
My apologies. I thought there was an action item also. Okay, so moving on to the discussion and action regarding the mid-year 23-24 operating capital improvement program budgets.
Yeah, Finance Director here again. And I think, Brian, unless you had anything else, we're probably good to go.
Yeah, I'm gonna excuse myself. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
So the staff report identifies some things in the budget that we wanted to highlight. We're late for mid-year budget review, but ultimately what we're asking the board to approve is changes to the CIP budget only, not necessarily the operating budget. We explained some of those, some of the rationale for that in the staff report. There are some items where that I want to highlight or flag just a few of the items under expenditures, which is on page 2 of the staff report. That first bullet point, the $66,000 due to increased repairs. That was also what we should have highlighted there was that was partly due to the grant that we received from CPPA. It was work that we did with grant funds. So the expenditure for that line item went up, but we also received almost $30,000 in grant funds to offset the cost there. That's probably something we should have done a better job of flagging in the staff report. The other one that I want to point out is the fuel costs. I think we're doing better than what we had projected when this was drafted, and we may be on track to not exceed the budget this year. So we'll continue to monitor that and report back. But I think operations has done a good job of on both of those areas of controlling costs, but we'll report back to the board on that. Yes.
The one expenditure that just comes up, we're facing it every day, are your chemical costs.
Yeah, continue to go.
It's just, do they not care about the cost?
Well, they don't care about, I mean, they don't care to lose money on the production of those chemicals. I'm sure their costs have gone up too. I hope it's not just profiteering, but at the end of the day, we don't have a whole lot to say about that. We have to, these are things that are essential for us. So I don't know if they care or not. This would be the answer.
But we are looking for cheaper chemicals at all times.
Yeah, I know our staff have looked at alternatives, and it's there aren't a lot of alternatives out there.
Okay, well, you had another statement in here about looking at no, maybe this was back on the other page. This was allowing the or we'll probably discuss it later, allowing the board to provide staff direction on types of services or programs the board would like to see emphasized for future budget years. We'll discuss that later. Is that it?
Sorry, where are we in the?
That was on the first page, the second bullet. Page 1.
I mean, I
Allowing,
think that's just something that we do during the budget development process, as we do every year.
okay, well, I'm just looking at the new addition to our staff, John Coleman. And that would be, something that he could really, he has a lot of knowledge about what,
About what is possible. We're excited about that.
we have a job for him already.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Okay,
Probably the biggest change between the finance committee and today, there was a larger, I think, a larger dollar figure in the adjustment on the water side. But that was partly due to the change order we did for the Copper Cove Water Treatment Project to add the Jenny Clear Well. And that expenditure will still happen. It's just not going to happen until next fiscal year. So we don't need a budget adjustment for this fiscal year. For that project, it'll be rolled into next fiscal year. Other than that, I suppose we'll take questions.
I just got a comment. I just impressed at how much we got going on at one time, how many irons in the fire, balls in the air that we're juggling with a reduced staff and all the interviews that are having to take place. I commend you, Michael, and staff for keeping these projects rolling, and then having the ability to have another project signed in today or $10 million, and it was expected to be $12 million. There's a lot going on, and I can certainly understand why we might need with this many projects going on and the uncertainty with of costs, and why we might need a budget adjustment mid-year, and frankly, it's not a huge adjustment compared to the numbers that are floated in relation to each one of these projects, and keeping them, every single one of them, under the budget that was proposed many years before they came online is impressive. Thank you.
Really appreciate that, and thank goodness we have such great people and such a great team here.
There was one statement about reinstating $50,000 in funding that was deleted by mistake.
That was I think that's on the sewer project, is that right?
Valvito. I mean,
Yeah, so that's just correcting that, making sure we have money in that project for this year that was.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the description deleted by mistake. That's.
Yeah, I mean, we own it when we make mistakes.
Oh.
But I think to Director Adderman's point, I think our admin services team deserves, and all of our department heads as well, have a hand in, and just, a relatively small number of mistakes and even small adjustments that we're talking
absolutely.
about here in the grand scheme of things.
Absolutely. Our staff is doing the very best they can under the circumstances, and there's no.
Yeah, we could continue to have discussion on this, but I'd like to make a motion to adopt this amended budget. Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. A public comment on this.
I'm going to have this email entered into the public record. There was a note written by Michael Rogers directed at Director Davidson with CC copies to Michael Minkler about the La Cantena wastewater treatment plant upgrades. We understood that this project is classified as phase 3. According to the La Cantena wastewater treatment plant system strategic plan, as published in 2018, it talked about a series of investments described as phase 1 in the executive summary and their associated cost estimates. But there's also a statement that says that staff identified the most critical infrastructure improvements in this RFP, and there is currently not adequate funding in the CIP 5-year plan to complete the improvements. So the question is, can you tell us if any or all of phase 1 investments as outlined in the plan have been completed.
So I can respond to that. We don't need to add the email to the record by reading it into the record. It's now in the record, but also it's public record just by the nature that you emailed it to me. And I have to apologize to our engineering team because they provided me with a response that I haven't had a chance yet to forward on to Michael and make sure that, I can add something to it. But no, so we're trying to be consistent in how we talk about these projects over time, and what was called in the master plan, what was talked about as phase 1 is actually phase 3 of the series of improvements for that plant. And so I think the answer is no, that, none, if any of those improvements have been completed yet. But it's still the same scope of work that we're talking about when we're referencing phase 3. So apologize for the confusion on
We
that.
named the baby twice.
What's that?
We named the baby twice.
Yes, but
No
we're
problem.
trying to
Yeah.
bring it back to something that's more consistent with the historical trends out there, not just the 2018 master plan. But I could see why the confusion's there.
And so the plan,
Engineers or operators, please correct me if I got any of that wrong, but we'll follow up in writing as well.
okay, so, and that has been discussed with the HOA, all of these things, because that was one of the questions that we didn't know.
Not necessarily, it's not limited to impacts to the HOA. It's part of the service that they rely on, but it goes beyond that as well.
Great. And any status on having the CIP project tracking tool be updated and published for, I think you mentioned it before that you used to provide it and you're going to bring it back. That's what this was about with
In
the CIP
committee,
projects.
I think, yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment? Nobody online? Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second on this item. Could you pull the board, please?
Director Underhill,
Yes.
Director Ratterman,
Yes.
Director Davidson.
Yes.
President Thomas.
Yes. All right, we already have taken care of 4D and 4E, so 4F, isn't that somebody that's not qualified for military?
I have no idea.
Okay.
What?
What? Okay, discussion regarding financial services consulting agreement.
Okay, and I think we might have somebody online that can help us with this one as well. But so this is a proposal that we've developed over the last month, I would say. Really appreciate Kelly Richards' legwork on this one. She's done a phenomenal job on this. But we've obviously, as the board knows, we found ourselves in a situation of extended absences in the admin services department, and we're very, very relieved to have new staff there. And they're ramping up quickly, and I think they're going to be fantastic and working with Patty currently on a lot of training. But we're here we are in March, and we really need to prioritize budget development. We also have the added task this year of developing a third enterprise fund for the first time, which is going to be a heavy lift. And so just considering the time constraints and the situation we're in, we felt like it was appropriate to bring in some outside help for those specific tasks. Prioritizing budget development for the next fiscal year, including that breakout of another enterprise fund. And then also added expertise to add to our team for Tyler financial system implementation, which is something that I think is critical for us to have. So I think those are the three main areas where we felt like we needed some additional help while our new staff are still training and we're still waiting for our department head to come back. And so the recommendation we looked at, we sought multiple proposals. We looked at different firms. We were really impressed with Eide Bailly. We were a couple of proposals that were both very competitive, but really impressed with Eide Bailly. It's a firm that specializes in this area, actually special district accounting, and works with other water districts that we know, and we've seen some of their work product. I think it's actually probably a short-term effort at this point, but even if we bringing that function back, the budget development function back in-house in the future, I think this having an outside expertise and set of eyes go through it with us this year is going to be really valuable for the district in the long term. So we wanted to bring this to the board. I think we're at, it's not an increase in the budget because of the extended vacancies that we've had this year. So it's not an increase in the overall budget, but because of the potential dollar amount and the fact that it wasn't initially budgeted, it's board approval is required. So I think we have a representative from Ide Bailey on 3.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you guys for joining us this afternoon.
Chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
We just
Are they
all
on the
made it- we made
payroll
ourselves
already?
available, so
What's that?
we just made ourselves available for you guys today, so, yeah.
It looks like it. Thank you.
Really
course.
appreciate that. And yeah, feel free to, if you want to just introduce yourselves really quickly.
Yeah, so my name is James Ramsey. I'm a partner here with Ide Bailey. I've been in the governmental space for about 18 years. It feels like over 100 years. And I actually started off as on your side of the desk as an accounting manager, essentially working on budgets and I went through several implementations on that side as well. So been on the public accounting side for the past 12, 13 years, wouldn't trade it for the world. Got a fantastic team that works for me, and I'm going to let Kamiko and Scott introduce themselves now.
Okay, I'll go ahead here. So my name is Scott Nelson. I'm a manager at Ide Bailey. I work on a team at Ide Bailey dedicated doing nothing but special district accounting. We serve as outsourced CFO, finance manager for around 30 to 40 special districts in California. So lots of experience in water and local government accounting. It's all that I do. So happy to be here and to be available to help the district.
And I'm Kamiko Tsuchida. I'm a manager with Ide Bailey, and I work on the general government team. So I also work on cities as well as special districts, and also looking forward to working with everyone here.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
No, it's obvious that we need some assistance in that department, and we just heard from our auditor about it, and we know that Jeff's been in and out. He's been over the past 4 or 5 years of him retiring, and then we having to bring him back when he's had his new firm, and then he dissolves his new firm and comes back to work for us. This is all taken place, and now we've got some retirement. Patty retired. She's been working with us almost consistently since she retired on some form or another. And then Catherine came and was fantastic, did a great job, ran our finance committee meetings for a couple of years. And now she's gone, she left for a school district. This makes sense that we need this year, $100,000 for a short period of time with I think I saw earlier in another report with the $800,000+ that we've saved with being short on staff and not paying our staff. I think this is an important, we're overworking that department. And if you three can come in and assist them, that would be awesome and fantastic. I'd make a motion that we approve this.
I second.
Action item? It's not an action item, but I agree with the sentiment. We should proceed with this as soon as it's possible. Did you intend to make this an action item, Michael?
Yeah, I was hoping for a motion to approve that.
We got it.
Okay, there is a motion.
We'll do it.
Well-
Minute entry is fine.
Pardon?
Doing it by minute entry is fine.
I think we got an unanimous approval here already, whether we need to vote on the motion.
What was that, Scott?
I think we got direction if that's all we need on this item.
No, I think a vote on the motion would be great, and we can just do that as a minute entry and then move ahead without any questions about that, but.
Okay, I understand we have a motion. Who was the second?
I'll second.
Okay, Jeff seconded that. Okay, now we can ask for any public comment on this. There's nobody online? Okay, would you poll the board on this item?
Director Underhill,
Yes.
Director Ratterman,
Yes.
Director Davidson.
Yes.
President Thomas.
Yes. All right.
Congratulations. See you at work tomorrow.
Now, I'd like to extend an invitation to have you come visit us because we'd like to see you in person.
Yeah,
Of course, we can
especially if
definitely
it
schedule
snows
that
up at Bertha's place, you can stay up there and shovel her driveway for her. That'd be great.
out. Yeah, we can definitely arrange something. I'm not sure about the shoveling part, but we can definitely arrange some kind of trip down there. So we'd love to.
Thank you guys for being available today. Appreciate it.
Hey,
Of
big,
course,
also a
thank
big
you.
thank you to everybody who's pooled their time and resources and kept our finances together here. That's really pretty incredible, the skeleton effort and what they've accomplished.
Our staff has been absolutely amazing. It's impacted everybody. I think everybody's worn thin right now. So having the new folks start has been a huge relief, but I think having some additional outside help will be also, you know, really helpful. I feel like there have been so many people that have been amazing in getting us through this. But I have to give special recognition to Patty, who just, you know, again, comes through for us and has just been amazing. So really appreciate the extra effort beyond what she probably wanted to do, and really coming through for us in a huge way. So.
Okay, the next item, number 5, under reports, we have 5A, the general manager's report. And before you launch into that, are we going to have an opportunity to meet these two people, the new accountants?
I think we're going to do that at the next board meetings. We'll have a few other new staff by then as well. So we'll do it at the next board meeting.
Okay. All right.
And that was the first item on my report, though, is that we've had a couple of new staff people start already. As Director Underhill mentioned, John Coleman starts soon. He starts on Monday. And we're also very pleased to have finally filled the second water resources position, a water resources specialist. I don't think we have a start date on that person yet, but we're looking forward to having a water resources team again. That's the other one that has really impacted a lot of people, in addition to the lack of accounting staff not having a water resources department at all for going on probably 6 months now. I don't know. Has been really taxing. So we're excited to get those positions filled. We've talked about budget development here quite a bit already, so I'll skip over that, but I was going to just reference that quickly. On I want to briefly talk quickly about I think I've mentioned in the past the discussions we've been having with Utica Union Public Utilities District and the City of Angels Camp. We're loosely calling it the H4U, Highway 4 United. But people look at me sideways when I say that. I thought it was a good one, but we'll come up with a better name if we have to.
Too much soccer on your mind.
What's that?
Too much soccer on your mind.
Yeah, it could be. But just really productive discussions about collaborating on regional needs for the Highway 4 corridor, and potentially even bringing back to our boards individually the support for a joint study to evaluate that will help each of those agencies in different ways. But we're looking forward to bringing that back to the board, hopefully. And then I think probably in April, we'll have a more defined scope to talk about, agendize, and bring to the board and talk about with those agencies. So looking forward to that, and just ongoing productive discussions there. A lot of committee meetings. We had a really productive engineering committee meeting. Talked through a lot of different projects, and we'll probably have to do another one here before too long, because we are working on CIP update for the upcoming fiscal year. And so stay tuned on that. We may need a special engineering committee meeting next month. The finance committee has also been very busy. So we met 2 weeks ago, and we're meeting again next week. We had to delay in the last one, so they're a little bit close together this time around. But Patty's working with the new accountants on the financial statements, and we'll have a couple of agenda items in addition to that at the finance committee meeting next week. and then next week, we're also the ad hoc committee for real estate and is meeting next week as well. So looking forward to that discussion. On to funner stuff. A couple of different water agencies helped out with a program at Michelson Elementary. There was a program that Marianne Garamendi leads in other, throughout the county. It was raising trout in the classroom, but also using that as an educational tool for students. And it was a really fantastic program. The trout release was last week. It's a fish and wildlife curriculum, and so you have to get it's all run through Fish and Wildlife so that they can actually raise trout in the classroom and then release them into the creek. But just wanted to mention that Kelly had a waterproof GoPro in the creek where they were releasing the tiny little fish. So we're still waiting to hear back from Kelly as to whether we got any good underwater footage of the new fish, but we'll see. But just a great event. Marianne does that in other schools in the county as well. So we're going to coordinate with her to make sure we're supporting that effort in other areas. But just a really great program. And then lastly, I think I forgot to mention upcoming meeting, the Poker Flat HOA meets this weekend, and we'll be there to talk about the construction impacts of our lift station project. I think our staff, ops and engineering staff, have done a good job of keeping them informed. And we met with the general manager recently to talk in detail about construction impacts that will be going on this summer in Poker Flat, which is obviously a very busy time there. And they invited us to be at their board meeting, so we'll be there on Saturday to make sure they have all the information they need. I think that's all I have for now.
Any questions?
Sorry, for President Thomas, I forgot to mention this to you at the beginning, but before we adjourned, we only have the one closed session item, the labor negotiation, not the other two.
Okay. Do you have some questions for him?
Lastly, happy birthday.
I just have a time crunch. I gotta get to meet.
Oh, you have to leave, huh?
So I was gonna see if I could just give my quick report and get out of here. If I could get to the front of the line.
He wants to
Cutsies.
crowd.
Just
Just because you've been gone.
I'll usually wouldn't do that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to report out, was at the insurance pooling conference last week in Nashville. And then the week before that at the Washington DC Aqua Conference. And I would like to I got a couple slides that I've putting together. I'd like to report out in our next meeting on those two items, just some things to share, some takeaways from those meetings. Also, April 4th is the Mountain County's reception in Columbia. I'd like to invite everybody. It's an evening reception. I think it starts 5 o'clock or so, 5:30 in Columbia State Park at the hotel there. We have some great guests. U.S. Congressman Tom McClintock will be there sharing his thoughts. Our California Senator Maria Alvarado Gil will also be there. And California Assemblyman Joe Patterson. I think all three of them will have a speaking role. Rub elbows with a lot of the local electeds as well. Next week, I got Aqua JPIA meetings, the Liability, Finance, and Property Committee, which I'm a co-chair on the Property Committee now. We'll be meeting, and then the following day will be the Executive Committee meeting on the 21st. And lastly, yesterday I was appointed by Aqua President Kathy Green to the Aqua Outreach Task Force. They'll be joining our own Kelly G on that task force. He's a member of the Region 3. I'll be representing the Aqua Local Government Committee.
Thanks. Could I add one item? I'm sorry to do this after my report is over. It's a good one.
I wouldn't let him.
I would if you would like some good news.
He said he has to leave. Oh, go ahead.
Scott's aware of this one. I think I failed to report in our last board meeting, but it was probably for the best because it wasn't quite yet official. But our budget appropriation request for 11.2 million in Army Corps funding for Copper Cove has been passed by Congress and signed by the president now. So we are extremely excited about that, despite how hard the Army Corps is to work with.
Pretty forgettable thing to.
I know.
Yeah, this isn't the enough on that either. $11 million for our
Well,
10 years
so
of effort.
let me just add some restraint a little bit, because you know how cautious Mia is. I was just confirming with her that it was signed. I'd heard that the president signed the bill, but I wanted to make sure ours was in there. And she said, yes, the bill was signed into law. It will be folded into the Army Corps work plan. It's essentially done, but I don't celebrate till the work plan is done. I'm conservative. That was the response from Mia. So we're not celebrating yet, but if the Army Corps doesn't include it in the work plan, they would be defying the executive and the legislative branches of government. I don't think they're going to do that. So I think we can at least be confident that it will be there.
So at the next meeting, at least bring one of those like New Year's poppers.
Sure.
Have some sort of.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Hard work.
It means a lot for us to be able to move that project forward, and it's a difficult one.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, honestly, if you need to, there you can go. But Michael, getting back to things that I'd like to hear if they're still in the works is East Side GSA.
Yeah.
With a new water resource person coming online, are we going to jump back into that in a big way, or?
Yeah, and I had a meeting with Teresa Hitchcock and Marcos Munoz a week or two ago. Met with them recently, and that was one of the topics of discussion. We have another staff level meeting that we're working on coordinating right now. And I think, mapping out the course for that is a high priority. We need to get back on track. I don't know if you saw the news yesterday, but this state is now recommending for the second time that it take over one of the groundwater basins. So there's now a second basin that will most likely be under the direct control of the State Water Resources Control Board, which is something we absolutely want to avoid. So that was as if we needed a reminder. There it is.
Okay, but back when I was attending those meetings, that was, they were formulating their budget and they had some sort of a grant of $2 million, or as I recall, to get the East Side GSA up and running. We had at the same time, we had a anticipated $50,000 budget that we were prepared to put in, but we only put in like 12,000 or something in that.
No, we have an annual expenditure that we share with the other members of our GSA. So that is still an ongoing expense at this point.
Okay.
We want to bolster the GSA so that it can generate revenue on its own, but that's probably 3 steps down the road from where we are right now.
Okay, but I haven't seen anything on the claims summary for.
It's once a year.
Once a year?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
The one thing, well, that's, yeah. I can, once we have the next set of meetings with the county, it's probably high time to agendize that and bring back a more robust discussion with the board.
Okay. All right, Director Underhill, do you have your report?
Okay, I'm still celebrating my birthday. My birthday was last Saturday and I've been celebrating for over a year now. And so it's about time to wind it up. Anyway, the only thing that I'm looking at the fact that
Airmail.
we're finally going to get out of winter. And that's the reason I couldn't go to the fish release, because I was snowed in last Monday and I'm sorry I missed it. But this coming Monday on the 18th, White Pines Park will meet for the first time this year.
wow.
So that's great. So we're ready for you
Okay.
whenever you want to join us. Otherwise, that's all I had. I had a wonderful birthday and I'll keep celebrating.
Well, it hasn't snowed on the Dogwoods in Arnold yet, so winter is not.
Oh.
It will snow again when that.
Oh, darn it. You always tell me that every year.
It holds true.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, Director Davidson, do you have anything to
I
report?
have something. One thing, happy birthday.
Happy birthday,
Staff and
Bertha.
board. Just a couple of things I want to talk about. One, assume we'll be getting a schedule with the AB transmission line, and then probably be good. I'm sure along with that, we'll have some town hall meetings regarding the traffic and all that sort of thing.
Absolutely. I think that is I think that'll be in the works once we have a more defined schedule
Yeah.
and
It's
construction.
gonna be pretty impactful on traffic, but luckily in Rancho, there's a lot of escape routes. Or not just Rancho, but La Quintina as well, but there are alternative ways to get, to the highway, so.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll be meeting that. Another thing, I read something today where Park and Recs, are you still on the committee?
Of course.
How did you miss Valley Springs and Copperopolis on the review of locations for parks? And that's where the majority of children live.
We haven't missed it.
Well, it gave a list of the parks proposed, and none of them were in Copperopolis or Valley Springs. So I'll have to have a talking to you.
Come
to you
to
about
this
that.
meeting, you'll hear all about it.
Okay, and then, well, Scott left, but I hope in that land, when we do the land and use thing, that we consider what we talked about at the engineering committee, which is finding a location to store some of the spoils of our projects. If we have a piece of property that we can reduce the trucking distance, I'd like to see us explore that. That's it.
Okay, yeah, I'm glad you brought that Parks and Recreation. That's a commission, not a committee, but it's a commission. And the county has actually ponied up $200,000 to fund a professional analysis of the parks requirements or parks needs in the county. And here's 5 meetings that they're having around the county, one in each district. And I hope that when Kelly gets back, he can post this on our website also to kind of focus some attention on this effort, which is long overdue. I think that the hope for result of this master plan that they're trying to formulate is kind of building some enthusiasm for hiring a Parks and Recreation manager and creating some appropriate amount of funding for that activity. So
Is there a meeting up the hill?
there is in District 3, it's Wednesday, April 17th at the Native Sons Hall in Murphy's.
Do you have another flyer?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. And just for the record, starting at District 1, we have April 18th. That's at the Jenny Lind Veterans Memorial Building in Valley Springs. District 2 is Thursday, April the 11th at the West Point Community Hall. And District 3, as I just said, was at the Native Sons Hall on April 17th. District 4 in Copperopolis, there's Thursday, April 4th, and as a result of this meeting being scheduled on that, I won't be able to go to the Mountain County's reception over in Columbia. Really had to look forward to going to that, but I gotta be here. And District 5 finally is at the Calaveras County Firehouse on Jenny Lind Road on April 3rd. And there's a survey online that if you can't attend these meetings, you can make some comments about your wants and wishes for Parks and Recreation activities in Calaveras County. Also, Michael, you remember we have this Board of Realtors event on the 19th, the Tuesday the 19th, that I told you that was going to be at noon, but it should be 11:45. We ought to be there a little earlier.
Even better, because I would like to be there with you and then rush back for Finance Committee, but that works. That'll work.
Okay. Let's see, what other notes did I have here? Was this
Closed session.
Yeah, we have a closed session. This is as Michael said, this is for, this is 8B. Is that correct, what we're going to be discussing?
The top one.
Okay, so item 8A under closed session is a government code agency negotiators. General Manager Michael Minkler and Stacy Lawler regarding negotiations with employee organization SEIU Local 1021 and the Management and Confidential Unit. So do we have any comments on this closed session? Okay, yeah, the Jenny Lind Veterans Memorial meeting is, all of these are 5:30 to 7. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I didn't cover that. Okay, but no comments on the closed session stuff. Okay, so this meeting is temporarily adjourned. We'll be coming back after the closed session.
Francisco, you might want to look at this.